Yo. Good evening, peace and good evening. I did not do my read with me today, and I need to still, so I brought the book. But I just finished my AuDHD Unmasking class for the week. I guess I'll call it a class. And I figured I was going to start doing some live journaling on this just to kind of document the journey and document my thoughts fresh out of class. Last week, I think I was too tired to do it, and the idea didn't occur to me. But this week, I had a bunch of thoughts that I thought were interesting that I just like to be able to look back on and reflect on at some point in time. And I figured I'll share them with the world just in case anybody else can relate, is curious and may need a program like this. I think this one thing that I can say is I can see how this sort of course can be helpful for people. This sort of program. It's I'll call it a program. I'll ask Enoch what he prefers to call it. This is his program. It's led by the course is led by and or the program's led by and designed by Enoch Kaz, really intelligent brother who was diagnosed with adult adults diagnosed as an adult with autism about what was it, about 12 years ago, I guess. And so over the course, I guess he's had to develop and learn some tools that help him cope and get through life and do things and more effectively and in a more healthy manner. And he's still on a journey just like the rest of us. We're all on a journey, right? But he's picked up some tools that I've started to find very helpful. And I figured I'd just at least hit a couple points. I didn't take notes last week. I just kind of sat in. This week I took a couple notes because I noticed that's how my mind works a little bit better is when I work on my when I take notes and have something to reflect on. So just looking at some of my bullet points. I'm gonna make it simple and try and keep it quick too. Try and keep it dirty. Um, this week, our focus was in my interpretation. Obviously, was focused on understanding our natural inclinations and gifts and how we may mute or mask these in order to engage in society. My creativity, my intelligence are two things that I've had to learn to mask in certain cases or certain spaces and places in my life, um, in order to feel like I was accepted, respected, seen as capable, and also, in order to feel like I've been considerate. Um, and there, I'm sure there are many other ways, but those and my empathy, my empathy, I've had to learn how to mask my power of consideration things I've had to learn to mask too to protect myself as a form of self-preservation because people will take advantage of that. But also, my intelligence I've used as a mask. I've used that to kind of hide, um, my other vulnerabilities. I've used it to compensate for some of my shortcomings, I think, in some cases. And with my creativity, that's where I love and I thrive and I live. But I've had to learn to mask that, or not had to, but I've learned to mask that because indulging in that, in certain areas of that, in my opinion, can, because of the way I indulge and because of the way my creativity presents or comes out, it it can kind of leave me feeling alone or isolated because do standard I don't do any things that fit into certain boxes or into very many boxes that are societally accepted or respected. For example, I make what I consider weird beats, and they're not weird. They're my own shit, but other people will call them weird or different or abstract, and I get that. That's just one way. Or some of the things that I find beautiful, don't necessarily appeal to the masses. And indulging in some of these things as an adult, especially when I'm struggling with, which is something that's I'm learning is common for people who are autistic and who have ADHD. And not to say that I absolutely am, but there are a bunch of indications that make me believe that I should at least understand this better. Um, but there are shit. I forgot where I was going with that shit. Oh well, never mind. Well, yeah, no, it was people with these traits or people who are on the spectrum often have trouble with common tasks that people say you should just be able to do. Like I realized my whole adult life I've struggled with handling responsibilities, and I've needed help and assistance, and I've gotten that help and assistance in ways that I didn't realize I was getting it. Sometimes it was just through a technique I just learned this week. It's called body doubling. Just having somebody there with you while you're performing the task sometimes helps you perform the task, which could explain why I've had problems with codependence in the past. Um, Maybe still, who knows? Um, but it's called executive function. That's the part of the function within the brain that we or people who struggle with autism and ADHD struggle with is you know what to do, you even know how to do it, but somehow you just can't kick into gear and do those things that can solve a problem or help you handle a responsibility. So that's one of the things that drives me to get into the course because that's where I'm struggling right now. Like I know how to do everything that I should be able to do to or know what to do at least to solve many of my challenges and problems, but just implementing and executing is where one of the challenges comes in. By the way, if you want to support, hit fundthefounders.org. You can support me, you can support Veda, you can support Mizzo and his wife Sky, you can support Yanni in what we're doing. If you see what we're doing, you believe in what we're doing, all of us are founders of so many different movements that we need and could use some help, financial help. Absolutely. Hey, sometimes just encouragement and you know a kind word because we in this space, all of us have had to learn how to mask our tools and creativity. There are people who get upset at the way that we use our creativity and or the way that our creativity exhibits. There are people who've been, I'll be honest, there are people who've been jealous in our lifetimes and we've had to admit it. And I've never been willing to admit that before because I'd never looked at myself as adequate. I've had imposter syndrome, but in coming to face and deal with my imposter syndrome, I've had to understand that some people have just been downright mean and venomous about my gifts or my skills, and they've found ways to make themselves feel better by belittling mine or disregarding mine. Um, and I've found that a lot of people that have similar traits to me go through very similar experiences. And that's not to say that I'm some super high powered being that's just some amazing mother effer. No, it's just that what I do have, the gifts and talents I do have, sometimes are seen as threatening or you know, make people uncomfortable. And I've had to learn to mute or mask myself in order not to make people uncomfortable. Um, but this is one of the things that the course has helped me work on. One thing I also like about it is, although we're focused on learning and it's much of it is lecture based, part of this is also there are reflection sessions or reflection moments in there where we have to talk about a certain concept, and in that way when those parts of the conversation or the course or the program are conducted, it feels kind of like a support group, which is something that in the past I've been traditionally uncomfortable with, but since I've been doing things like the Gray Skull and Gray Space and mental maintenance and these Twitter spaces and everything, I've gotten much more comfortable talking about my vulnerabilities. Although I need to be able to open up more. And some people are like, no, no, dude, you showing way too much. You showing way too much. But no, my goal and my vision is to do this stuff in real life to show people that it's okay. Because I know so many people who won't and aren't willing and can't show their vulnerabilities. For some people, it's dangerous to show your vulnerabilities, depending on where you live and what type of environment you spend your time in life. And I get that. But at least showing people how to be real and honest with themselves and vulnerable with themselves, modeling that behavior, I think is helping me. One, it's holding me accountable to do that, and that which is helping me. But also, if I'm doing it in public, but also I think it maybe it'll help other people figure out how to do it for themselves in their own way. Nobody has to do it the same way as me, but I think by at least bringing these concepts and displaying these vulnerabilities and talking about these challenges out loud, I think it's helpful. And I think it's if more of us do this, it can make fewer of us feel like we have to mask and put up walls and armor and facades in order to live what we consider a peaceful or happy or joyful life. Because in the end, it's not a peaceful, happy, or joyful life if you have to put on a mask in any space that you're in, whether that's with family, friends, professional environments, any of that. I know we have to do it in some cases, but that doesn't mean that life should always be like that. We should be working toward building a world where we don't have to do that and where our children won't have to do that. More importantly, I think that's one of the other reasons why I do this, is because I worry about my children and other people's children and what kind of world is being created when in society we're being taught to create more and more masks and to be something other than what we are naturally. Um, but yeah, it felt like a support group. And I got to see where I am in a few key areas. I want to be careful not to give too much of what's going on in the course, because this is a business he's building, and I don't want to give away any of his secrets or any of the proprietary information. So I'm trying to be very careful in how much I share about what went on in the class. But I'll say tonight's was definitely very helpful. I went in feeling pretty rough, and part of that's probably because I didn't do my gratitude practices or workout or anything this morning. I gave myself a day to not have to do anything this morning because I do something every day. I'm out here pushing every day, and I need to find room and space to rest, which is something we covered in here as an absolute need in order to balance your spirit, is getting proper rest. And it's really hard to do that when you've got some guillotines or some hammers about to come down on you. But yeah, we in tonight's we got to identify, I don't want to use his terminology here, so I'm trying to find some synonyms. Identify things that are natural within you, and then things that are external forces that get in the way of you cultivating and leaning on and building and engaging with those things that are natural within you. For example, like I said, the intelligence and creativity and my empathy, things that I are just come naturally. My consideration naturally come to me, but I've had to learn how to, mask and mute those in order to get along in circles in society that I've spent most of my time in. And one other thing that's been really interesting is, some of the people that are in the class are from other countries around the world. And you understand, one thing I'm coming to understand is how each of our different societies forces us to, I'm going to say forces us, but that may not be the right word. But I'm going to say forces us to have to mask in different ways just in order to get along. For example, in a society where women aren't given consideration and respect off the top, women have to really go through some extremes in order to make sure that they can find peace and happiness. That is, like, I'm really understanding more and more every year how much hell women go through, on top of the hell they may go through if they're not white. And that's not to say that white women don't go through hell too in their own different ways, but it's understanding the different pressures that force us all to have to put on different masks is something that's very interesting to me, and I'm enjoying thinking about and learning and understanding these things. I think it's given me more empathy, which is what I consider one of my superpowers, my empathy. Um, Another thing, that a quote that I'll pull from there tonight that was very helpful, um, and is, I think, helping to reinforce the way that I'm establishing and building boundaries, is the quote, kindness does not mean compliance. That was a dope one. That one was actually, I know that wasn't in curriculum, so I don't feel uncomfortable sharing that quote. I think that one's a great one from Enoch, and I appreciate him for that one, because yeah, in the past, I used to think that in order for me to be kind, I had to give extra concessions, or else I was being an asshole, the person that I didn't want to become. I've spent a lot of time around people um, who enjoy being mean, or seem to enjoy being mean, or have developed a mask that makes them end up being mean, inconsiderate, to other people. And I was so fearful of ever becoming that person that I would overextend on the kindness front, and I would give people more concessions than they deserved or than they needed. in order to not become that person. And I've learned you've got to find that balance, and you've got to find a way to be firm on what your boundaries are, what things are unhealthy for you. At the same time, move forward. And sometimes erecting those boundaries is still uncomfortable and clumsy for me, but I mean, this is a process. I'm still working my way up through it, and part of what we went through in the class is understanding what that process is, what the steps are, and working your way through something like that, which was really cool, and I think it's a valuable asset in the class. Um, Intelligence versus capability. That's something we talked about in there. Um, that even though we many of us, all of us actually in this space are highly intelligent. We're all like extremely intelligent. We know how to articulate our ideas and thoughts very well. We have a lot of ideas and thoughts that are just really, really special. Um, we struggle in certain areas of life. We all struggle in some of us struggle in very common areas, like the areas of handling you know right now I should be very comfortable financially based on my intelligent levels, but I'm not because of capabilities. That there are certain things I need in my support structure that I don't yet have in order to get me ready to handle, to really live up to my full capability, my full potential, and understanding the need for different support structures in order to do that. That was something that I probably needed to see in words and to be able to talk through with somebody. So that was helpful. Um, and one thing I think is really important for people to understand is courses like this aren't things that I would recommend anybody taking online and just watching in a video. A lot of stuff like this is not stuff that, and I think many things related to mental health and wellness aren't things that should just be engaged with via video. I think there should be a portion of these that require conversation, participation, and willingness to be vulnerable in a social setting with other human beings, but also honest with ourselves. A lot of us aren't willing to be honest with ourselves. We're so because we've built up these walls that don't even allow us to. We have to mask within ourselves. We don't even get it. We can't even see our own vulnerabilities, our own challenges, our own weaknesses, our own problems, because we've had to build up such big walls to prevent others from seeing them that we've blocked ourselves from being able to see them. So there's big value, I think, in getting into a space like this where you have to converse and talk about your own challenges, and that you'll get the most benefit from something like this if you actually go all the way in and take the time to be vulnerable and honest with yourself and other human beings. There are opportunities for growth and healing and just evolution, personal evolution in there that to me are priceless. I mean, we can live these superficial lives where we just gain material items and gain possessions and gain, empty experiences with, by interacting with humans, when we don't actually get real interconnectedness from them. That's cool and all, but I mean, to me, that feels like a life wasted. Like, why was I even here if I wasn't going to get the full experience? So having conversations like this, I think, gets us closer and closer to having a full human experience while we're here. And some of us are privileged to have the opportunity to be able to have a full human experience. Some of us don't get that opportunity. Some of us are born into bondage. Some of us are born into oppression that's way worse than what a lot of us others go through. I mean, I'm definitely more fortunate than some people are in other countries. Shit is not sweet for the black man in America or on the planet in many places. No, not at all. But I still have to acknowledge that I have privileges that others don't in America and outside of America. Um, so since I have those privileges and those opportunities, why not take advantage of them? Why not indulge and go in? Before I die, I got one chance to live. Why waste this motherfucker? Just why waste it? Why not go in? Why not expose and uncover and discover what's within instead of just focusing on what's external and outside of myself? Um, But yeah, some of the other stuff we talked about was, looking at ourselves and our minds and our spirits and our just our usness as personal gardens, and understanding that there's weeding that needs to happen in your personal garden, and that there are things that grow in these personal gardens that we need to learn how to cultivate better. So that was dope. That was dope. Let's see. And one of the topics that came up, when it came to the masking and why we mask is, I looked at one of the old reasons I used to mask. One of the old reasons I used to mask was the fear of being alone, because I always felt alone as a child and as a young adult, which led to part of my codependence. But finally getting to the point, over the past few years, after breaking through that initial trauma and PTSD and whatever, just needing to heal and work on myself as an individual. Um, there's no longer a fear of being alone, but there's still ways that I still overcompensate or do a disservice to myself, because and I realize part of it is because of my aspirations and my goals and my visions and my dreams, that like I see an interconnectedness and symbiosis with a lot of the things that I see going on with the people around me, and that excites me, and that it I want to contribute to all these things that are going to feed into a vision of a greater, a better world that I see that could be possible for myself and loved ones and people I don't know from Jack, for the world around me. So I'm still having to learn not to overextend myself, and learning how to find where to find balance, and where I need to focus more internally and on myself. Um, and I know, like, in my head, that focusing on myself more will lead to those other things happening. But again, it's that executive function thing. It's putting that into what I know into action is going to take practice and development. And tonight's course definitely gave some ways to kind of gauge where I am in developing those skills. um Also, one of the things that came to mind, for me, one of the things I made a note of is that I would use my intelligence and my capabilities as a mask at times, to protect myself from feeling like I wasn't respected, or that I wasn't accepted, or I wasn't seen as capable, um, or I wasn't seen as considerate. And I've realized that mask has obviously hurt me. We look at masking and look at how it hurts us, but I don't think many of us look at how our masking can hurt those around us. And realizing that, using that intelligence and capabilities to mask myself and to protect myself, how that can and did hurt others, is a big um, revelation for me. And I think it's helpful. It's a seed. It's something that is just starting to be planted, and something I'm just starting to think about. I'm curious, and I'm excited about what I'm going to learn after going through that. And then the last note I made was just about how masking has disconnected me from my true self and who I really, really am at the core. And I've been getting closer and closer to the core of who I really, really am. And I'm getting more excited about the person I'm discovering, that's been buried under all this stuff all these years. So I'm glad I've got a tool like this to help accelerate me learning about those things and moving forward in those things, man. But yeah, that's all my notes for the night on the course. It's a dope course. If you get a chance, follow Enoch, and get familiar with him, man. Reach out to him, just say what up from time to time, whatever. He's a really intelligent brother. His heart's in a good place, and he has some really great ideas I think can make a big difference for people. On Twitter, he's at Kaz Enoch, Kazenoch, and on Instagram, he's at Enoch Kaz, Enochkaz. So check them out. Take care. I'll be putting more content on neurodiversity out on all of the platforms over the next few months. I think just trying to, excuse me, get a little insight into the journey and let people share the journey, and hopefully open up some conversation, because my mission is to improve mental health communication, awareness, resources, and education through the use of the healing arts. And I guess not one conversation is one form of art, right? Creating these little backgrounds and visuals is a form of art, that's healing in some ways. And it's especially, I do this especially for marginalized people and the hip hop space, because I understand it's not, these are some of the spaces where we have the biggest problems and least information on mental wellness related concepts. Um, and we're not allowed, we're stigmatized heavier in some of these environments for indulging in conversation about that, or being willing to be vulnerable or open, and honest with ourselves. These are some of the spaces where we have to mask the most, because of society and what society's done to us and our families. But yeah, man, I'm out. Y'all have a good weekend. We'll enjoy the rest of your Sunday night. I might start another stream to do my reading for the Magic, since I haven't done it yet. But I'm gonna go check in with wifey and puppy, man, because I haven't talked to them since it's been 3 hours. I just want to go check in with the family, man. So y'all have a good Sunday night. Peace, love. And just peace. Enoch, what up, peace? Thank you for the course tonight, class tonight, man. It was dope, man. B Rhymes, peace, peace, peace.